Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. You are about to listen to the Hacking Your Potential podcast with Frankie Thomas. Join Frankie and uncover the secrets of those who achieved greatness. Let their wisdom and experience inspire you to transcend mediocrity and strive for excellence. Take the first step towards an extraordinary life and start your journey today. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Cheers.
Marco.
No beer. It's water.
That's
Sparkling.
That's
That's the problem. So let's stay hydrated, all of us.
and if it's
bubbles
sparkling
go
and
to your
a
head.
beer, that's a whole. I guess there is sparkly sour beers too.
I don't know. Where do you live?
Doing that. I tasted one yesterday, in fact. So
That's why I ask you. 'cause I
they
knew
have,
that.
you have to be. Well, I have to be in the mood for them. But, that's not what we're here to talk about. Not. Well, maybe we'll talk about beer. You know, who that
Why,
goes, but,
why not?
that's not the initial driver of this conversation. This is obviously this is ITSP Magazine Podcast Network, and Sean Martin here with my co-founder Marco Ciappelli, and I think we've had a pretty good run, Marco, of bringing on some interesting topics and some interesting shows, and meeting some really cool people in the process that are hosting these shows. And today I have the distinct honor of introducing Frankie Thomas. Frankie, how are you?
I'm very good, Sean. Thanks for inviting me on today.
You know, this is a natural thing to do. I mean, I don't know how many weeks, not that many weeks ago that we first connected, and I think I saw a post and I said, "That's a cool topic. Love to see you talk about it some more." And here we are a few weeks later, and you're doing just that, which is pretty cool. But obviously, that's the summary version, the TLDR version of that. But there's much more to it and you. What do you think, Marco? Should we hear a little bit more about who Frankie is?
Absolutely.
We know a little
Absolutely.
bit, I guess.
Well, that's the reason why we do this kind of conversation, like very friendly. It wouldn't be bad to have a beer or a coffee or whatever. Just I like, this is how I do sometimes with my guests. Like, let's pretend to be sitting at a coffee table, maybe in a coffee shop somewhere, maybe in London, and I'm throwing a hint there that we can talk more about. But it could be in Paris, it could be in Florence, anywhere, and just have a nice conversation, which is about meeting Frankie and introduce you to the audience that maybe listen to my show, to Sean's show, and they want to listen to your show too. So I would say, who is Frankie? Question
Okay,
mark.
well, let's pretend we're in Florence because it's about 80 degrees in here at the moment.
Okay.
So,
Pick the
yeah,
place.
so
I'll be there.
so I took an interest in penetration testing and cybersecurity in general about 12 months ago, say maybe 13 months now. And I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know what Kali Linux was. I've had sort of a background in IT, but not much. And I just dug my heels in every single day, going. Started making friends on LinkedIn, found myself a mentor who's still guiding me. He's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. Just had an interview with him. It was absolutely fantastic. So, and he sort of guided me into taking notes because I was on Try Hack Me, the website Try Hack Me, and I basically completed the whole thing in 6 months. I was in the top 1%, and he goes, that's great how you've done that. He was like, can I see your notes in that you've been taking? I said, I'm supposed to take notes. And he goes, yeah. He's like, you think you're going to be able to remember all that stuff? And I was like, oh, I don't know. So he started quizzing me on SQLI injection and stuff like that. And I was like, couldn't answer any of his questions. So he advised me to go to a course on TCM security he said, go through it. And he was like, but take really good notes. He said, screenshot everything. And So I started doing that, and then I got really, I think I have maybe some sort of OCD or something. I get very focused on something when I do it. So the note taking became primary. And then I was using LinkedIn to sort of save my notes so I didn't lose them in case my computer crashed or something crazy happened. And then I started getting a lot of interest from them. And after doing it day after day after day after day, they got better and better and better. And that's actually what led me to you. So now I've basically sort of cut off the studying for that at the moment, and I'm fully obsessed with the podcast now.
a new obsession, which we're grateful for, and everything you've done up to this point will fold in. Hopefully you don't stop learning, as you're obviously going to be learning new stuff about yourself and your guests and the technology as you do your podcast. But hopefully you keep growing in the other areas as well, assuming that's what you want to do. But let's go a little further back even. And I often joke, for me, it's back to when I was hatched. But maybe further back, you said you had some experience in IT, but did you always have an interest in technology that led you there? Or what about technology early on? I don't know. How did you enter that realm, I guess?
Yes, I've actually got a great example for this. I always remember it as being a kid. It was a magazine series. You get those magazines where you get one piece of the puzzle each month or something, and then you build the project over time. Well, I started buying this one that was building a robot basically, and it was like a little bug. And one day you'd get a microchip, and then another day you'd get a light sensor, and next week you get wheels. And I think over the course of 3 years, I built this entire robot and built its own remote control and everything. So I think I've always had an obsession with technology. I was more interested in breaking it than building it. So I had a big box, and I must have been about 10 years old. I had a big box just full of cables and microchips and broken up remote controls, PlayStations, you name it. Everything. I had to take it apart and look what was inside, but I never built things. So when I discovered penetration testing, I thought, oh, this is great. I can just sit around breaking things all day. I don't really have to fix anything.
I always look for toys and other things that had motors in them, right? That you could take and make those do other things with other parts and pieces.
I think that was the only thing I ever got spinning.
But Sean, how many times have you heard this similar story about this is how I got into hacking? Because what you just described, it is hacking anyway. It's either building or breaking it, rebuilding, being curious, and being all about making something better. If there is a way to improve it, why not? You got to break something to know that it's not perfect. And I think the assumption is that nothing is perfect. And as a matter of fact, I like the title that you choose for the show, because we as human are very hackable ourselves, and we can hack our way into things that is not necessarily just technology, right? It's you hack yourself in learning to play an instrument, you hack yourself into learning how to become an artist, or even making friends. I mean, that's an art as well. So, I mean, the fact that you're translating this mindset into being human and find a way to progress in your career, I think it's great. So tell me more about why you focus on this kind of conversations.
And the show name is Hack Your Potential, right? So just so we set that stage.
Yeah, so the whole idea behind Hacking Your Potential was like, I've never done podcasts before, so I'm not a professional podcaster. I'm also new to cybersecurity, so I'm not a professional in cybersecurity yet either. But I always try to play to my strengths. And my strengths have always been like discipline, mindset. I will happily get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and start working on editing one of my shows if I have to. I don't sort of believe in laziness or anything like that. I don't believe in, I'll do it tomorrow, or it can't be done. And it all came from small little things that I've done. So like even just hit my shower on cold every day. When I get a shower, I whack it on cold every day. And no matter how many times you do that, your brain will tell you not to. It begs you every time, even after years of doing it. I make sure I go to the gym every day, and I sort of want to gear the show around not particularly, giving people advice in cybersecurity, but giving them more advice on how to be successful in cybersecurity, but more to be just successful in life. Like I'm certain I can take my hand to any sort of trade or field and start making moves in it. And I think if, we can help people sort of gain them sort of skills, even just little things. Like I find a lot of people on LinkedIn, they're all great. They're following the learning paths and stuff, but they're not really doing much else. And I don't think that's their fault. I think they're not educated in the idea of sort of pushing the boundaries with things. So the whole premise of the show is to sort of help people, find them ideas, give them light bulb moments that go, oh, no, I didn't think about that. That's what I've been doing wrong this whole time. Because I think that's what actually changes people's lives, is the way they approach things, rather than, knowing the latest, threat or knowing the latest exploit. I don't think that helps as much as actually having that get up and go every single day and facing your fears and all that sort of stuff, really. That was the premise behind it.
And setbacks. I've heard three things thus far. I'm sure we'll hear more even, but just talking about creating that robot where you have to acquire each, I think you said magazine, right? Each magazine gives you each piece. That's patience right there to wait for all those pieces to bring it together, to build it. And then the persistence and maybe the desire and creativity to break it all apart again, right? And perhaps they maybe make it do something it's not supposed to. And then so those are kind of the two things, persistence and patience. But then you described your mentor saying you just completed this amazing, I don't know that I could do Hack the Box, right? I probably couldn't do Hack the Box, to be honest with you, and let alone be in the top 1%. So you accomplished that. And then the feedback you got from the mentor was, well, where are your notes? And that could be like seriously damaging in terms of the desire to continue. And yet you took that as a challenge to keep moving on and perhaps to help others understand that as well. So I think through the podcast, you're going to be able to do that, not just one-to-one, but one-to-many as you connect and grow your audience, right?
Yeah, well, my first thought with the podcast was, once I realized how much time it was going to take from me to sort of get the ball rolling, all the learning curves and, equipment I have to learn to use. And especially with, I suffer with performance anxiety. I don't know if you noticed, but I always have. And so that's another fear that I have to face every time I do this. And what I was worried about, I thought, I'm not going to be able to keep learning stuff. I'm just going to be focused on this. But then I thought, no, hang on. I get to speak to industry leaders and I can pick their brains. And that's the sort of stuff you ain't going to get from these sort of online courses. They'll teach you how to use the technology, but they're not going to actually teach you what it means to be on the ground and what it actually means to be a professional in this industry. So I think what I'm going to get from this is going to be a lot more valuable than that. So that's what sort of swayed the weight for me, really, into diving straight in.
You know what? Let's talk about this, because I'm a big fan of, every time I talk about education, that there is not just one way to learn how to do something. And for me, education many times fails people because it just tells you, here's the book, here's the rules, here's what you need to follow. Then I'm going to give you a test on that. And if you don't do it as it was in that particular book, you fail. And I think that's bullshit.
In the order the teacher wanted you to follow it.
Exactly. So, famous philosopher said back in antique Greece that teaching is about teaching how to learn. Then what you learn is up to you, because when you have that methodology, then you can learn anything you want. It's not about learning something. And I always go by that. And I feel like when you talk with people that they've done it their way, there's not just one way to succeed. And I think that's the key about understanding it. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but from what you said so far, and even just by reading the description of your podcast, is about imposter syndromes. It's about feeling inadequate to do something. But why? Who said that?
What do you mean? Like, no one said it. I think like imposter syndrome stuff for me, it's all inside my head. Like everyone tells me I'm great and you can do this, and especially in the cybersecurity community, I found that's the key to imposter syndrome. I've spoke to a few people about it now, and they said it's the community that's the answer. If you're unsure about something or you don't think you can do something, just ask people what they think. And especially in this community, you're going to get a lot of people saying, no, you can do this, go ahead. And that's sort of how you cure it, I guess.
Yeah. And how about what I was saying at the beginning, like that you're probably going to get a lot of different answers, a lot of different way to do something right. And I think that's the beauty of this industry and many other industries. So, you hear a lot of different stories, and maybe that eureka moment can come from something unexpected.
Yeah, well, what you said about the exam and sort of remembering the information and then ticking the boxes, like I totally agree. It's a poor way to educate people. I'm quite lucky in the sense where I can remember information I can spend a day learning something and pass an exam, no problem. But then the next day that information's gone. Like I did gardening at college, and I had to remember certain types of grass by looking at them, the Latin names and the names of the seeds, etc. I was the first person in 5 years to get full marks on that. But you ask me that now, I couldn't even remember one of them. So I think it is a poor way. I think you can't read a textbook on how to hit the hammer on the nail, can you? You're only going to get better after you've hit your thumb a few times.
Well, I spent I don't know what, I forget how many years, 4 years. Let's say 4 years, maybe even 5 or 6. I don't know. That shows you how good my memory is, which kind of sets the tone for this next comment. Which I'm right there with you, Frankie. I helped build a system for estimation and job management for landscape companies. So I used to know all the plant names and genuses and all that stuff too, but not anymore. Not anymore. That stuff's gone. But I want to go back to Marco said, he said something and or success. I can't remember now because I spoke over myself. But I guess the point I want to make and want to get your thoughts on is success. Oftentimes, what are you trying to achieve and what's the path to get there is often defined for someone, and it may not be the something that you're trying to achieve, and the path to get there may not be the same for everybody, kind of on the same point. And I think that's really where the hacking your potential comes in, because you can view something differently than others, and then the path to get there, especially if it's very different, could be different as well. And I don't know, you've already recorded a few shows. Couple should be live by the time this is produced. Talk to us a little bit about some of those conversations in connection to some of the things that we've touched on here.
Yeah. So I won't go into my first guest as it's already out there. You can go and have a look at that. But the guest coming up is Anton. He's known as the remote code execution man, or some people call him Rice Man. But he's a bug bounty hunter, and what grabbed my attention with him, because like I'm attracted by work ethic. So if I see someone's doing a hell of a lot of stuff, especially when I found out he has a family as well, I need to speak to these people to find out, how are you doing this? And so he has like a successful Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. He's on all these platforms doing this stuff. So I want to find out how he did it. And I didn't get much of an answer. The answer I got, well, it's hard. He's from Latvia, but I got it's hard. But I think the main thing I got from him was when I asked him about the imposter syndrome, which I said before, and he was the one who said it's the community. He said you join these communities, and any problems you have, share them with them. And I was like, that's fantastic, man. I was like, because I suffer with it all the time. I have a different approach with imposter syndrome, for instance. So when I feel like this is bad or this is wrong, I can't do this, I use that to trigger me to carry on. I see that as a sort of marker to say, I'm almost at the end here. I'm almost at the good bit. Who else did it?
I have to say on this point, because I mean, the thing that drew me to you is that, well, it was your post on LinkedIn, where you were talking about things that I loosely understand after having been an engineer for a while, but I don't play that role anymore. So I get it, but I don't understand it to the depth, at the levels that are necessary to talk intelligently about it. And I thought what you're doing would be great for the community to hear beyond LinkedIn. And so to this point where you have that feeling that you're not good enough, you were already doing amazing things that drew me to you, that now are going to help the community even more, where in part you'll talk about some of the challenges you have and some of your guests have in actually being successful and jumping through those hoops and crossing over those hurdles that are hard, as your next guest said.
Well, that document's actually a prime example of what I just said. The way I designed that document, it wasn't easy. I use an application called Joplin, a note-taking app. And you can use like markdown tags and HTML tags to sort of design things. And this worked out to be a 100-page document in the end. And I couldn't just automate this to do what I wanted. I had to put every single tag in individually. It took me 7 days, roughly 12-hour days. I was waking up doing it, going to sleep, waking up doing it. And I must have got about halfway through, and I was close to giving up. I was like, I don't even know if this is going to look good, or is it maybe it's going to be a complete disaster. And I thought, no, just keep going. And it turned out to be a raging success. So that's for anyone who's listening, if you do suffer with like imposter syndrome or anything sort of trying to hold you back, just use that as a reason to carry on. But that's what I've started to do. So when you offered me the podcast, I was terrified. And then I was like, okay, right, I'm scared. Good. I don't want to do it. Good. It's going to take, it's going to be difficult.
Going to be amazing.
Yeah,
so
that's it. So
it sounds to me you're the kind of person that the harder it seems, that the more you're going to dig into it to kind of prove yourself that you can do it. And I think that's a great attitude, right? I mean, self-learner, clearly, for a lot of things, and kind of looking at the challenge straight in the face. And and if you fail, you can't always succeed, and you say, if you're not failing a few times, you're probably not doing it right. So that's what I think is the power of listening to other people. And I want to dig into the podcast itself. So one of the things I like to ask people is the why, right? Why did you feel that the podcast was as difficult, as challenging for your personality, but something that you say, you know what, this is going to be actually a good challenge because it's going to bring me to this. And I understand the community, but maybe dig in a little bit more into what attracted you to accept this challenge the most.
Well, the reason I accepted it is because it is a challenge, and it's a challenge on so many levels. For one, I'm a very talkative person, and I think we all know that, if you talk too much, it can make you deaf. So active listening has always been something I've really struggled with. So I thought this is going to be a great opportunity for me to actually try and sit down and listen to people instead of talking over them. And so there was that aspect. I thought, right, that's going to help me with that. And the fact that everything about it is a challenge for me. So the talking to people, I get nervous. What else? Yeah, so the talking to people, I get nervous, and I'm losing my words here, gentlemen.
All right.
Just give me a second.
Yeah.
I've never been on this side before. It's easier to be a host.
Here, let's do this. Let's do this. You ask us a question now. Go.
That's right.
So what engaged you guys to join forces and start ITSP magazine?
Sean, do you know the answer? You go.
I know the answer.
All right, go.
It has to do with food. Everything starts with food for me. And I'm kind of joking, but not really. We met at a cafe in Hermosa Beach, Hermosa Beach, California. And we, I think, pretty much instantly became friends, and then realized that we crossed over in terms of the work that we do in marketing and things like that. And I'll try to keep the story short. We recognized that the cybersecurity field was doing it not the best way possible, marketing, that is. They were presenting their solution in the form of a box with a CD inside it. That was the form of marketing. We're like, there has to be a better way to kind of convey what's going on here and what the real value is. And fast forward, we realized that it's connecting to the human. The human side of technology and the impact it can have on business. And then broader, we opened up things to technology, so the impact it has on society overall. And what started with helping companies bring their products to market with better messaging became telling stories in written form. We were born as a publication at Black Hat 9 years ago, and as a written publication. And then we figured out that telling a story is as a conversation works better than just in written form. So we decided to kick into podcast land, and haven't looked back. So that's my version of the story.
And I'm gonna stick
started
with it.
started with coffee and croissants.
You know, I'm making some connection between, Frankie, what you said and what we decided to do, because in a way I feel like we're very similar. Meaning, we said, hey, should we start a publication? I had no idea. Before I met Sean, I didn't even know what cybersecurity was. I mean, I come from marketing, branding, and sociology, but I knew it was important, and I knew it was important to have this conversation. But I also remember that one day Sean was already good at writing about cybersecurity, interviewing people, and then writing an article. And we're like, this podcast thing, it's kind of happening. And we said, screw it, let's do a podcast. I mean, never done it before. It's not that we were coming from the radio world or anything like that. And then Sean started and like, you know what? I think I can do this. So, I started doing podcasts too. And I look back sometimes and I'm like, I don't know shit. But I just go out there and do it. And every time that I do a podcast, I learn something, and you find your own voice, your own style, which in my case is no style at all. I mean, this is just me. I'm not scripting anything, right? And I guess I'm lucky because of that. But it's also something that, like you said, every time you talk to someone, you get better. And nobody starts by being good. That'd be pretty weird, right? So,
And I'm like you, Frankie. I'm not comfortable on this side of the camera. I'd rather be flipping the knobs in the background, making sure it sounds good, and kind of controlling things from the other side. But nevertheless, here I am.
Well, I'm
and it led me to people like you, and I'm very grateful for that.
I'm grateful that you found me. It's probably been one of the hardest challenges I've had to face over the last couple of years, for sure. I've always sort of done things where I didn't have to really face my fears, like the public speaking thing, especially the public speaking. I used to be a DJ, and even after 10 years of DJing at festivals and stuff, I still suffered with the nervousness of it. So I don't think it's anything that will ever leave me, to be honest. But I think I can, gain more control over it, I guess. But going back to your last question, I think I felt the same way as you about it. When Sean said, do you want to do a podcast? I was like, yeah, let's do it. I have no clue. What I'm doing, but when opportunity knocks at the door, you have to walk through it. Otherwise it may not open again. So even if someone offered me, to do something else, maybe, I don't know, say it was something bigger, I don't know, say someone offered me a TV show, for instance, then I'd be like, I have to keep rolling with this, even though it could potentially be a disaster. But I think there's a part of the podcast where I've been speaking to some of the guests, and they think we should start talking more about or asking people more about their failures, because I think a lot to do with imposter syndrome particularly is people are terrified to fail. And I think it's something that people need to get comfortable with. So I think hearing stories from these really successful people in the industry talk about, where things went terribly wrong for them, I think it could be really useful to people. So it's another approach we want to take.
No. Well, it's interesting because the start of the publication came on the heels of, well, two ventures. One that I started, and then we transformed that into another thing. Remember, Marco? Well, it was Community Shopper, and then the what was the other one? The Card Everywhere or something like that. Where we had this idea to bring people together, and the huge failure, my one anyway. But what I realized was it's difficult to connect with a large audience. It's easy to go one-to-one to a business, harder to connect with 1,000 people that one business is trying to sell to. And again, it led us back to how do you do that? It's about telling a story and having a conversation. And so that huge failure led to us figuring out, well, we want to connect with those people, and we want to do it in a genuine way and tell stories that are meaningful to them. And ultimately, and this is what we're all about, helping them learn. Knowledge is power. That's our tagline. So everything we do revolves around connecting technology and cybersecurity to society, and ultimately to the businesses that are making society kind of run from that perspective as well. So the point is that failure led to this. Whether it's a success, that's to be determined at some point. I'm having a good time, even though I'm uncomfortable. But I love working with Marco. I love bringing folks like you into the mix and expanding on our vision for what we're doing here. So.
Yeah, and to add to that and to what you're doing, my experience with media in general is the fact that now with the internet and the fact that we have access to technology, and we all become content creator, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it's a bad thing because everybody have a platform and can bullshit all day long and people will listen. I'm not going to get political here, but the other good thing is that we all have an opportunity to make a difference. And what is beautiful is that people more and more, I think, they appreciate transparency and honesty and a candid conversation. We're not expecting, if you're watching the BBC, you expect to have an overproduced piece of something, but when people listen to a podcast, they want that moment of, shit, I'm not comfortable right now. Give me a minute.
This is real. This is
this is a real conversation. Yeah. People get inspired by that. So no, my point is not expertise and experience required. As long as people had that desire to share the knowledge to make a difference in somebody's life, and it could be that one person that listened to you out of many, that the day after it get inspired and you change their life. I think that's worth it, to put ourselves out there, even sometimes we look like a little silly, but
No, absolutely. It only takes one good episode to change someone's life, doesn't it? Or even just one good sentence. But I think what you said about the, being genuine and being honest, it's, I figured that really early in this, when I started this project, because I come to the conclusion I wouldn't be able to talk on the microphone. As soon as I've hit record, I went, and I had my head in my hands for a whole day saying, I can't do this. And then the next day I tried again, and it was like, oh, hang on, I've made 10 minutes here, right?
Yeah.
But I've got an episode that will never be published, and it was about about having positive people in your life and how to find positive people, how to avoid negative people. And it was half an hour long of me just reading a script. And after I listened to it back, and I said, I can't do it like this. There's no way. So I decided that I have to just do it without the scripts, with maybe have some bullet points, couple of questions as reference, but I've noticed as soon as you start reading things, whether it be it's not genuine if you're reading it from a script, really, is it? Even if it comes from the heart, but you can tell straight away. There's, like, I noticed there's no ums or us or doubled up on the words. It's very, can you talk about mentoring or figuring out who's had a significant impact on your professional journey? It's a totally different it's a totally different person speaking, and straight away I realized, no, just be myself, even if I have to fall over and roll around like what was his name, Chaplin. even if I have to look like the Chuckle Brothers or something while I do it, it's fine, because I know when I look back at episode 187, I'm going for. When I look back from 187, will be the turning point where the professionalism finally kicks in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the next 180 something episodes. I don't know if you want to mention guests or themes. I know you have some stuff coming from InfoSecurity Europe in London, which is
let's talk about that.
Yeah. So what do you have planned?
Yeah. So excited about that. So at the moment, I'm trying to put together like a sort of pre-conference episode where I've already spoken to Philip Wiley. He was kind enough to come on pretty quickly and have a great chat with me. That interview was an absolute disaster on my end. I used the wrong microphone. I didn't quite prepare properly for it because he messaged me back so quickly. Luckily, I have a background in sound editing and sound design and stuff like that, so I managed to make it sound much better than the reality. And the other guest who I spoke to just now, Ben Armstrong, he does penetration testing as a service. So the whole point of the first point was to get to know them. So I asked Phil about his life, how he went from pro wrestler to penetration tester, because first thing I saw was that, and that was the first thing that sort of piqued my interest. And it was quite fascinating to hear that he has a similar background as myself, where he worked in construction and restaurants and retail. Like I actually work in construction now. I'm only off because we have this festival on. So when I'm not digging holes, I'm doing cybersecurity. So it was refreshing to know that there is hope for people like myself. If you work hard enough and just keep going, you can get through that. And so far I've only found those two people. I've contacted a few others. I'm finding it quite difficult because I like to keep it around penetration testing and sort of ethical hacking because that's my interest. So it would be quite not honest of me really to start interviewing people who are in fields that I don't quite understand. I'd have to sort of make things up, and I don't really like that. So I'm waiting back on a few other people if I can find them here. Yeah, Laurie Mercer from HackerOne. I've sent him a message. I'm waiting for him and a few others. But I'm hoping to just get a bunch of them in for like quick 20-minute, 30-minute chats, and then just put it into one episode, and then I'll run around with my new microphones. I got the Rode wireless ones, so I got using that now. Because I was finding it very difficult with the microphone I had. I had to keep going like this when I was talking to people because it's not very high
or
quality.
be like me where there's more microphone than my face, but I kind of like that old school DJ feeling. Like,
that's
radio.
That's the next one I want. The next one I want is the same as yours, up here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, one of the reasons why we do this meet the new host is not only because it's a great conversation for us to have, which we could do easily, and we've done it, of course, before you started, not record it. We're going to see you when we are at InfoSecurity Europe, so I'm excited about that. But the reason why we do this is exactly, the people that listen to Sean and I, now they may want to listen to your show. And I think the community that we are involved with, it's quite big. So I want to take this opportunity to invite everybody that wants to share their story to actually contact Frankie, contact us, and we'll pass the word to Frankie. And come on, have a chat with him, and we all have a story to share. I always say,
Everybody's
made of
hacking,
stories.
everybody's hacking their potential, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and it's those
Yeah, and
stories that we need to hear. Yep.
Yep.
absolutely. And yeah, I'm willing to get virtually anyone on the show if they've got a story to tell or if they've got things that can help, newcomers to cybersecurity. And personally, I need as much practice as I can get doing this stuff.
We
Let's
all
be
do.
honest.
We all do.
If I go a week without interviewing someone, I feel like I'm sort of going backwards a little bit. So if I can speak to someone every single day, that would be very beneficial for me.
Yep. I feel like my life is quite empty if I don't record one or maybe sometimes even 3 or 4 podcasts in a day. And the day I don't, I'm like, hey, I got a lot of time to actually do other things. But I do miss that. It's been, especially during the pandemic, I just love this idea. Like, this morning I talked to someone in Singapore. It was my first Monday morning conversation. And I'm like, technology is pretty cool. I mean, I just talked to somebody in Singapore and I'm in LA and now I'm talking to you in the UK and it's very cool. I think that podcasting and video conferencing is a blessing and it makes the community tighter. So that's my final message. I want to close with this. This is all about the community. It's not about being the best TED talker, speaker, keynotes, or anything. It's about being out there, share your story, and thinking that maybe what you tell is going to help the next person to do it in an easier way, learning from other people's mistake, not always having to hit the head in the wall in order to, or burn your finger or get the cold shower every morning to realize what it is. So an invitation here to spontaneous conversation that happened to be podcast. And then we're so happy to have on ITSP Magazine. So thank you so much for this. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'd like to add to that as well, that anybody who's like thinking of starting a podcast and, but they feel like maybe they can't, or they're worried that they'll have the fear, I suggest they contact you too, because I wouldn't be here without you guys. And I know you're more than happy to, if you think somebody has potential, excuse the pun, then you're happy to help them. He's been great with me so far, and we're only just getting started. So if anybody's interested in starting their own podcast, give Sean and Marco a message. I'm sure they'll help you out.
Well, you're very kind. We definitely saw the potential, and we're thrilled to have you on. And I think the other thing cool that I'll close with is there's a huge community in Europe as well, and I think they probably don't get the voice that they deserve in a lot of US based publications. So for me, this is a call to hear the UK and the greater European voice on your show. Different perspectives, different experiences, different way of looking at things, and you're the one to bring all those stories to bear, hacking your potential.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. A lot of my guests have been from Canada and the USA. I know cybersecurity has it's really big in the Americas and Canada and stuff. But I'll definitely start looking for more, English, United Kingdom, European people, because there is a lot of us here. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the Isle of Man that I've found so far. But if anyone from the Isle of Man is listening to the show, come and meet me in person.
You'd be surprised. They probably didn't know you were in it until they hear this. So
yeah, I know. We didn't actually mention the fact that you're right there in a small island.
That's right.
And so I'll be curious to see what the cybersecurity community is there. Maybe you can just meet at a pub or something.
Yeah,
which is what we will do during cybersecurity, InfoSecurity Europe really soon. All right, talking about podcasts, I think we got another coming here. So back to back. I know you were back to back too, and I'm pretty sure that after this you'll get even more back to back. And I'm very, very happy to have you on board with us.
Yep.
It's an honor and a pleasure.
Yep.
And the time we spent together, very, very important for us and for the people that got to know you. You're a really cool person.
Yeah.
With that said, Sean, should
Yes.
people subscribe? What do you think?
I think they should listen, subscribe, and share, and support Frankie in doing what he's doing to support the community, bringing folks together. Yep. So, thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and
Cheers.
cheers to you, Frankie.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting you both in person.
Be good.
I'll see you in London.
See ya.
Talk soon, gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Hacking Your Potential podcast with Frankie Thomas, part of the ITSP Magazine podcast network. If you learned something new and this conversation made you think, then add this show to your favorite podcast player. Subscribe to the ITSP Magazine YouTube channel and share the ITSP Magazine podcast network with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to connect your brand to our conversations and our audience, visit itspmagazine.com to learn how to sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey.